The wedding night. The night of my grand wedding, the housekeeper for my new family suddenly locked the door to the bridal suite, grabbed my arm, and told me to change my clothes and run out the back. "Hurry," she urged. I did as she said and escaped a catastrophe. The next day, I knelt to thank my savior. My name is Ava. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I had just married Julian Davenport, the heir to one of the city's most prominent fortunes. Everyone said I had hit the jackpot. The wedding was an affair of legendary proportions. We booked 3 entire floors of a 5-star hotel. An archway of fresh flowers stretched from the entrance all the way to the main stage. Dressed in my custom-designed Vera Wang gown, I felt like a princess. My parents beamed with pride, their smiles never fading. After a whirlwind of a day, I was finally escorted to the Davenport estate, a sprawling, castle-like mansion, and into the master bedroom, our bridal suite for the night. The room was the epitome of luxury, decorated with countless white roses and lilies. I sat on the edge of the king-sized bed, its satin duvet turned down invitingly, feeling a mix of exhaustion, shyness, and anticipation. My shoes, which my bridesmaids had playfully hidden earlier, were still tucked away somewhere in the room. Suddenly, the door to the suite clicked shut. It had been locked from the outside. I jumped, startled. I looked up to see a woman in her late 50s, wearing the standard uniform of the Davenport household staff. Her hair was pulled back neatly, and though her face was lined with wrinkles, her eyes were remarkably clear. I vaguely remembered seeing her bustling around during the day. Everyone called her Mrs. Peterson. Before I could process what was happening, Mrs. Peterson rushed over to me, her face pale. She gripped my wrist, her strength surprisingly firm. "It hurt." "Quickly," she whispered, her voice urgent and strained. "Miss Ava, you need to take off that wedding dress. Now." I was completely bewildered. What was this all about? "Mrs. Peterson, what's wrong? What's happening?" I asked instinctively. She stomped her foot in frustration, her voice dropping to a near-inaudible, trembling whisper. "There's no time to explain. Trust me, just this once. Change into something inconspicuous. The back door on the ground floor is unlocked. Go out that way and run. As fast as you can. Don't let anyone see you." The raw panic and fear in her eyes were undeniable. Her frantic energy was contagious, and a knot of dread tightened in my stomach. Though I had no idea what was going on, a powerful sense of foreboding made the hair on my arms stand up. I pushed aside all my questions and the decorum expected of a new bride. A single thought dominated my mind. Listen to her. With trembling hands, I tore the heavy, diamond-studded clips from my hair and fumbled with the intricate buttons of my gown. Mrs. Peterson paced anxiously beside me, her whispers a constant refrain of, "Faster, please, faster." I yanked a plain white t-shirt and a pair of jeans from my luggage and threw them on. I didn't even have time to find my sneakers. I was still in my slippers. Once I was changed, Mrs. Peterson grabbed my hand and pulled me toward a small, secondary door in the suite. It led to a service staircase. "Go down here." She pushed me forward. Her words clipped and rushed. "It leads directly to the back gardens. I've left the small iron gate unlocked. Once you're out, turn right and follow the path. Run until you're far away and find a place to hide. No matter what you hear, don't look back. Don't come back." My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst from my chest. I gave Mrs. Peterson one last look. She nodded at me, her expression grim. Steeling myself, I pulled open the door and slipped into the dark stairwell. I stumbled down the cold, concrete steps, the hard edges bruising the soles of my feet through my thin slippers. But I didn't care. My mind was a blank canvas of fear, with only one word painted on it: run. The descent was dark and terrifying. The only sounds were my own ragged breathing and the soft slap of my slippers against the concrete. I didn't dare stop, terrified that someone was chasing me. I finally reached the ground floor and found the small door, just as she'd said, slightly ajar. I pushed it open carefully. A wave of cool night air hit my face, shocking me back to a sliver of clarity. Outside was the mansion's vast back garden, shrouded in darkness, with only a few faint wall sconces providing a weak glow. Following Mrs. Peterson's instructions, I turned right and ran down a gravel path with all my might. My slippers fell off several times, but I didn't bother to retrieve them. The sharp stones dug into my bare feet, but the fear was a greater pain. I ran until my lungs burned and I couldn't catch my breath. I ducked behind a large oak tree, bending over and gasping for air. I looked back at the Davenport mansion. The brightly lit house, which hours ago had been my dream come true, now looked like a monstrous beast slumbering in the darkness. It sent a chill down my spine. What on earth had happened? Why did Mrs. Peterson make me run? Was there a fire, a break-in, or was someone after me? My mind was a chaotic mess of unanswerable questions. Just then, I saw it. A window in the wing where my bridal suite was located suddenly lit up with a blindingly bright flash of orange light. The light flickered once, and then thick, black smoke began billowing out. More and more, it poured into the night sky. I clapped a hand over my mouth, stifling a scream. A fire. There was really a fire. Soon, the piercing shriek of the mansion's fire alarm shattered the night's silence. The house erupted into chaos. Lights flicked on in dozens of windows, figures rushed back and forth, and the faint sounds of shouting and panicked screams drifted toward me. I watched, frozen, as the black smoke billowed out, my legs turning to jelly. I collapsed to the ground, a cold terror seizing me. My body wouldn't stop shaking. My bridal suite was on fire. If I had still been in there, if Mrs. Peterson hadn't come to get me, hadn't told me to run, would I be trapped inside right now? Could I have been? I couldn't let my mind go there. The delayed wave of fear washed over me like an icy serpent, coiling around my chest and squeezing the air from my lungs. Tears streamed down my face, not from sadness, but from pure, unadulterated terror. Hiding in the shadows of the tree, I watched the chaos unfold. People with fire extinguishers ran up the stairs. Others were on their phones, their voices frantic. After a long while, the smoke began to thin. It seemed the fire was being put out, but a different kind of fire was igniting within me. This fire was too convenient. A fire in the bridal suite on the wedding night? There was no such thing as that kind of coincidence. Mrs. Peterson. She must have known something. She saved my life. I had to find her. I had to know the truth. I huddled behind the tree, cold and terrified. My bare feet were throbbing with pain from the sharp stones. I was wearing only a thin t-shirt, and the night breeze made me shiver uncontrollably, but I didn't dare move, my eyes glued to the activity at the mansion. The fire appeared to be completely extinguished, and the alarm had stopped, but the house remained lit up like a Christmas tree, with people still rushing about. I heard the voice of my new husband, Julian Davenport. He sounded frantic, shouting something. And then I heard my new mother-in-law, his mother, her voice sharp and high-pitched, seemingly directing the cleanup. They sounded worried, but a chill crept through me. If they were so worried about me, why had no one realized the bride was missing? Hadn't they even looked for me? As my thoughts swirled, a faint rustling sound came from the bushes next to me. I flinched, my heart leaping into my throat. A dark figure cautiously approached, whispering, "The new bride? Miss Ava? Is that you?" It was Mrs. Peterson's voice. I almost sobbed with relief. "Yes, it's me. Mrs. Peterson, I'm here," I whispered back. She quickly ducked behind the tree. Seeing my disheveled state, she sighed and took off her own worn cardigan, draping it over my shoulders. "This is no place to talk," she said quietly. "Follow me." She took my hand, and using the darkness and the cover of the trees, led me to a spot further back on the estate grounds. There was a small shed there for gardening tools. She unlocked the door, pushed me inside, and then slipped in after me, closing it firmly behind her. The small shed was cluttered with shovels and rakes and smelled of damp earth and fertilizer. It was so cramped we could barely stand. As soon as the door was shut, I grabbed her hands, my voice still shaking. "Mrs. Peterson, what in God's name is going on? Why was there a fire? Why did you make me run?" She looked at me, her eyes a complex mix of pity and lingering fear. She patted my hand. "Miss Ava," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Tonight's fire was not an accident. I had suspected as much, but hearing her confirm it made me gasp. Not an accident? Then she leaned closer, her voice a mere puff of air. It was set on purpose. That fire was meant for you. My legs gave out, and I nearly collapsed. For me? Why? Who would want to hurt me? Mrs. Peterson hesitated, as if weighing her words carefully. She sighed. It's a terrible business. I didn't want to get involved, but I couldn't stand by and watch a good young woman like you get hurt. I've worked for the Davenports for nearly 20 years. I've seen things. She paused, her voice dropping even lower. Your husband, Julian, he's not the man you think he is. The way his first wife died. It was suspicious. I felt the blood freeze in my veins. His first wife? I was told she died from an illness. Mrs. Peterson shook her head, a strange expression on her face. She was sick, yes, but not that simple. There are things I can't say for sure, but I always felt, anyway, you escaped tonight. That's a miracle. You need to make a plan. This family, this house is a viper's nest. Her words sent my world spinning. The man I had just joyfully married, the wealthy family I thought was my new home, was hiding a secret this horrifying. Murder? An arson attack aimed at me? An immense fear and a wave of rage washed over me. The small tool shed was cold and damp, but I didn't feel it. I was completely stunned by her revelation. Julian's first wife. The woman I had only seen in photographs. A gentle-looking person I was told had passed away from a disease. Her death was suspicious. Mrs. Peterson, I asked, my voice trembling. What do you know? Please, you have to tell me. I don't know anything, and I'm so scared. She looked at me, a conflicted expression on her face. Miss Ava, knowing too much won't do you any good. All you need to know is that you have to get away from the Davenports. The farther, the better. I clutched her arm like a drowning person grabbing a lifeline. But I can't just leave like this, not knowing anything. I was almost killed. I have to know who wants me dead. Perhaps it was the desperation in my eyes that moved her. She sighed again, her voice low as if recalling a terrible memory. It was about 3 years ago, she whispered. Julian's first wife was named Lily, a wonderful person, so kind to everyone. She hadn't been well for a while, always complaining of fatigue and dizziness. Julian and his mother, your mother-in-law, started treating her poorly, complaining that her family had lost its influence. She paused, a flicker of fear in her eyes. One night, I couldn't sleep. I was walking past the study and I heard Julian and his mother arguing. They were keeping their voices down, but my hearing is still good. I heard a few things. Julian sounded impatient, saying something like, "It's almost time. If we don't act soon, we'll lose our chance." And his mother said, "It has to be clean, not like last time." I heard that and the hair on my neck stood up. What? What were they talking about? I whispered. Mrs. Peterson shook her head. I didn't fully understand then, but it terrified me. And then, not 2 days later, Lily's condition suddenly worsened. She was rushed to the hospital, but they couldn't save her. The doctors said it was some kind of acute poisoning that led to organ failure, but they were never clear on the specifics. The Davenports held a quick funeral and discouraged anyone from asking too many questions. She looked at me, her gaze heavy. Ever since then, I've been paying attention. I noticed that around that time, Julian's company was in serious trouble, drowning in debt. Soon after, he started looking for a new wife, until he met you. Your family, the Millers, may not be top-tier billionaires, but you have substantial wealth, and you're an only child. Mrs. Peterson didn't need to say more. I understood everything. Julian didn't marry me for love. He was after my family's money. He might have even planned to get rid of me the same way he dealt with his first wife, then legally inherit my trust fund, and perhaps even a share of my family's assets. And tonight's fire, that was them making their move. A sickening chill shot up from my feet to the top of my head. I felt nauseous. I had married a monster. Slowly, anger began to overpower my fear. I couldn't let this go. I couldn't let the people who tried to kill me walk free. And I couldn't let that poor first wife, Lily, Die in vain. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. I looked at Mrs. Peterson and said with determination, "Mrs. Peterson, thank you for telling me this. I can't leave. If I run, I'll be playing right into their hands. They'll get away with it and might even find another target. I have to stay." She was shocked. "Miss Ava, that's far too dangerous." "I know it's dangerous," I said, "but I need your help. Can you keep my escape a secret for now? Don't tell them I know anything. I want to see how they're going to play this out." Mrs. Peterson looked at my determined expression and, after a long hesitation, finally nodded. "All right, but you must be incredibly careful. I'll do my best to watch out for you." As dawn approached, Mrs. Peterson and I quietly devised a plan. She would slip back into the mansion to check on the situation, while I stayed hidden in the tool shed and made myself look even more distraught. I messed up my hair, smudged some dirt on my face, and rubbed my eyes until they were red and puffy, as if I had been crying in terror all night. About half an hour later, Mrs. Peterson slipped back. "The fire is out," she whispered. "It only burned the area near the window in the suite. The damage isn't severe. Julian and his mother are frantic, mostly because they can't find you. They're having people search, but they're trying to keep it quiet, afraid of the embarrassment. The police are here, asking questions." I nodded, a cold smirk on my face. Were they frantic to find me, or frantic to confirm I was dead? "It's about time," I told her. "I should make my appearance." I took another deep breath, got into character, and then, feigning a state of shock and disorientation, stumbled out of the shed. I staggered my way around toward the front of the mansion. As I neared the main entrance, I intentionally made some noise, and then weakly collapsed onto the lawn. As expected, someone spotted me. A security guard shouted, "Found her! The bride is over here!" Instantly, a crowd of people poured out of the house. Leading the charge were Julian and my mother-in-law, Victoria. Julian rushed to me, scooping me into his arms, his voice dripping with feigned anxiety and relief. "Ava, Ava, where have you been? You scared me to death. Are you okay?" I let myself go limp in his arms, my body rigid with disgust. But on my face, I managed a look of sheer terror. The tears came on cue. I let out a loud sob. "The fire," I stammered. "It was so big. I was scared, so I ran. I ran out. I don't know how, but I must have passed out." My mother-in-law, Victoria, also crowded around, grabbing my hand, her face a mask of concern. "Oh, my dear daughter-in-law, you gave your mother such a fright. It's okay. You're safe now. It was just an accident. Some faulty wiring. It's all over. Don't be afraid." While her words were comforting, her eyes darted over my body, as if checking to see if I was truly unharmed or if I had discovered something. I knew exactly what she was doing, but I had to play my part. "Really?" I sniffled. "It was an accident?" I was so scared. I thought I was going to die." Julian immediately lifted me into his arms and started walking toward the house. It's over. It was just an accident. I'm here now. Don't be afraid. Let's get you inside. You're freezing, and your feet are all cut up." He carried me into the living room and placed me on a sofa, wrapping me in a blanket and bringing me hot water. His performance was Oscar-worthy. I huddled on the sofa, continuing my act as the terrified, traumatized victim, all while secretly observing them. I saw Julian and Victoria exchange a look of relief, but also a flicker of suspicion that hadn't entirely disappeared. I knew they didn't completely buy my story, but at least I was back, and I hadn't exposed them, which gave me time to maneuver. The show was just beginning, and I was determined to see just how they planned to finish their script. Julian carried me into the house and settled me on the living room sofa. A maid brought a first aid kit, and Julian himself knelt down, carefully dabbing antiseptic on the cuts on my feet and applying bandages. His expression was one of profound tenderness and concern. My mother-in-law, Victoria, sat beside me, holding my hand and offering endless words of comfort. "You poor child. You must have been terrified. It's all my fault for not having the wiring checked beforehand. Once you're feeling better, I'll buy you the biggest diamond ring to help you forget all this." I watched their faces, a wave of nausea rolling in my stomach, but I forced a look of gratitude and dependence. I sniffled, deliberately playing the part of a naive young bride. Julian, Victoria, it was so scary. How did the fire start so suddenly? And right in our room. When I was running, I think I smelled something strange. It didn't smell like burning plastic from wires. As I spoke, I felt Julian's hand, the one applying a Band-Aid, hesitate for a fraction of a second. The smile on Victoria's face also froze for an instant before she quickly recovered. She patted my hand. "Oh, you silly girl. When there's a fire, all sorts of things are burning. It was probably the wood from the window frame and the curtains. Plus, you were in a panic. It's normal for your senses to play tricks on you." Julian looked up and chimed in with a smile. "That's right, Ava. Don't overthink it. It was just an accident. I'm so glad you're safe. If anything had happened to you, I don't know how I would have lived." He reached out to hug me. I flinched instinctively, then quickly covered it by looking down shyly. I'm still a little scared." Julian's arms froze midair. A flicker of annoyance crossed his eyes before being replaced by a look of concern. Okay, it's all right. I won't touch you. You just get some rest." Just then, a maid came over and quietly said the police needed to ask me a few questions. Julian and Victoria immediately looked tense. "Officer," Victoria said quickly, "my daughter-in-law has just been through a traumatic experience. She's barely coherent. Could you possibly wait a little while?" This was my chance to gauge the police's stance. I spoke up weakly. "It's all right, Victoria. The officers are just doing their job. I'll answer what I can." I looked at the policeman. "Hello, officer." I was just terrified. I ran out, and I must have tripped and fallen. I don't remember anything after that until I woke up and it was almost morning. The officer asked a few simple questions, like when I noticed the fire and how I got out. I stuck to my script, acting shell-shocked and speaking in fragmented sentences. During the questioning, I noticed Julian and Victoria watching me intently. They seemed even more nervous than the police. After taking my statement, the officer offered some words of comfort and mentioned that the preliminary investigation suggested the fire was caused by an electrical fault, though the final cause was pending a technical report. At the words electrical fault, Julian and Victoria visibly relaxed. After the police left, Julian said gently, "Ava, you've had a long night. Let me carry you to a room to rest. The master suite is unusable for now, so you can stay in a guest room." I nodded, pretending to be weak and leaning against him. As he carried me upstairs, my heart was as cold as ice. Their reactions were too obvious, especially their tension about the police investigation and their subsequent relief. If it were truly an accident, why would they be so worried about what the police might find? And my comment about the strange smell, they immediately changed the subject, clearly not wanting to discuss it. It seemed Mrs. Peterson was right. These two were wolves in sheep's clothing, and they wanted me dead. After settling me in the guest room, Julian showered me with more false comfort before leaving, promising to take me to a doctor for a checkup and to help me calm my nerves. The moment the door closed, the fragile look on my face vanished. I walked to the window and looked out at the brightening sky. My heart was filled with a mix of fear and hatred, but above all, a steely resolve. Just you wait. I won't let you get away with this performance. Alone in the guest room, I locked the door and finally let my guard down. My back was drenched in cold sweat. Pretending to be vulnerable in front of those two predators was more exhausting than running a marathon. I collapsed onto the bed, my heart still racing. After the fear subsided, a massive wave of anger and a sense of helpless isolation washed over me. In this opulent mansion, I had to watch every breath I took. There was no one I could trust except for Mrs. Peterson, but she was a staff member, and helping me put her at great risk. I couldn't rely on her for everything. I needed an ally of my own, someone on the outside who could help me. The first person who came to mind was my cousin, Chloe. She was 2 years younger than me, and we had grown up together like sisters. She was fiery, quick-witted, and a brilliant computer science major, a bit of a hacker, actually. Most importantly, she was fiercely loyal and discreet. I quickly found my phone, thankfully still in my jeans pocket. It was just after 6 a.m. Too early, but I didn't care. I called her directly. The phone rang several times before she picked up, her voice thick with sleep. "Hey, Ava, why are you calling so early? Isn't this your first morning as a married woman? You're supposed to be— Wait, something's wrong with this picture." Hearing a familiar voice, my eyes welled up. I fought back the tears and whispered, "Chloe, don't say anything. Just listen. I'm in trouble. Serious trouble." The sleepiness in her voice vanished instantly. "Ava? What's wrong? Did that bastard Julian hurt you?" I quickly recounted the events of the previous night. Mrs. Peterson's warning, the escape, the fire, her suspicions about Julian's first wife's death, and my own observations of their behavior. Chloe listened in stunned silence. When I finished, she finally exploded. "Holy crap, that son of a bitch. Ava, you hang in there. I'm booking a flight right now." "No, don't come," I said quickly. "If you show up now, it'll be too obvious, and they'll get suspicious. I need you to help me from the outside." "Then what are you going to do? You can't stay in that den of wolves alone," she said, her voice frantic. "Listen to me," I said. "I need you to look into two things for me. First, find out everything you can about the real cause of death of Julian's first wife, Lily. Hospital records, any doctors or nurses who might know something. Second, investigate the financial status of Julian's company. Is it really in as much debt as Mrs. Peterson thinks? How much? And to whom? You have to be extremely careful. Don't let anyone know you're looking." Chloe immediately agreed. "No problem. It's on me. Hacking into a hospital system, digging into corporate financials. That's my specialty. You just be careful, Ava. Keep in touch. Call me the second anything happens." After hanging up, I felt a little more grounded. With Chloe on the outside, I wasn't fighting alone. But I knew that inside this mansion, I was on my own. After this morning's events, Julian and Victoria might temporarily believe my story, but they wouldn't be completely convinced. I had to continue the act, to make them lower their guard completely. For the next few days, I would have to be the perfect, traumatized, naive bride who was growing more and more dependent on her loving husband. I had to be a better actor than them. And while I waited for Chloe's findings, I couldn't just sit back. I had to find some clues of my own. During the day, Julian and Victoria were disgustingly attentive. They brought me supplements and comfort food, never mentioning the fire, as if it had truly been a simple accident. I played along, pretending to slowly recover from the trauma while becoming even more clingy with Julian. I looked at him with a mixture of adoration and a fragile fear, which seemed to please him. The suspicion in his eyes gradually faded, but my own nerves were stretched taut. I knew it was all a facade. My opportunity came on the third day. Julian received an urgent call from his office and left in a hurry. A little while later, Victoria also left, dressed to the nines for a spa appointment with her friends. The house fell quiet, with only a few maids working downstairs. My heart began to race. Julian's study was at the end of the second-floor hallway. He never let the maids clean it. He always tidied it himself. There might be something in there. I pretended to go downstairs for a glass of water, casually surveying the area. Mrs. Peterson was in the kitchen, directing dinner preparations. The other maids were busy with their tasks. I took a deep breath and tiptoed up to the second floor. At the study door, I tried the handle. It was unlocked. I slipped inside and quietly closed the door. The room was large and furnished in a classic, old-money style. On the large mahogany desk sat a laptop and a stack of files. My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew I didn't have much time. I quickly scanned the papers on the desk. They were mostly project contracts and business proposals that I didn't understand. I tried the desk drawers, but most were locked. Only one was open, containing pens, notepads, and other mundane office supplies. Disappointed, I was about to give up when my eyes fell on the wastebasket. Inside were only a few crumpled pieces of paper. On a whim, I picked them out and carefully smoothed them. One was a discarded draft, useless, but the other was a torn piece of a memo pad. On it, in a messy scrawl, was a name I didn't recognize and a line of numbers followed by a % sign. It looked like a percentage. I quickly snapped a photo with my phone. Then, I noticed a small cabinet next to the desk. On the bottom shelf was an old, unused-looking briefcase. I pulled it out and unlatched it. It was mostly empty, save for a few old magazines. But when I felt along the side pocket, I found something. I pulled it out. It was a folded insurance contract. My heart leaped into my throat. I unfolded it with trembling hands. It was a personal accident insurance policy. The insured person was me, Ava Miller. The beneficiary was Julian Davenport. The payout amount was sickeningly high, $5 million. The policy was dated the day before our wedding. My hands shook as I held the paper, a chill spreading through my entire body. So that was it. That was it. No wonder he was in such a hurry to marry me. He bought a massive insurance policy on me right after we were legally married, then staged an accident. That way, he could legally claim a huge sum of money to patch up his company's finances. The plan was as evil as it was brilliant. Fighting back rage and fear, I quickly took photos of every page of the policy with my phone. Then I put everything back exactly as I had found it, slipped out of the study, and returned to my room. Sitting on the bed, I looked at the photos on my phone, my hands and feet ice cold. While this wasn't direct proof of murder, this policy was a powerful motive. If Chloe could find evidence about his first wife's death and his company's financial troubles, we would have a complete chain of evidence. Julian, you monster. Your time is coming. After finding that damning insurance policy, I was on edge all day. Looking at the smiling faces of Julian and his mother made me feel sick with fear and disgust, but I had to act as if nothing was wrong. After dinner, I made an excuse of being tired and went to my room early. Julian even gallantly walked me upstairs. Once I was alone in the guest room, the suffocating feeling of being trapped in a conspiracy washed over me again. I knew the policy alone wasn't enough. I needed more direct evidence, something that could put them away for good. As my thoughts raced, there was a soft knock on the door. I jumped. "Who is it?" I called out nervously. "Miss Ava? It's me, Mrs. Peterson," came a hushed voice from outside. "I brought you some warm milk to help you sleep." I breathed a sigh of relief and opened the door. Mrs. Peterson stood there with a glass of milk, and she gave me a meaningful look. I let her in and closed the door. She placed the milk on the table, but didn't leave. Instead, she carefully pulled a small object, wrapped in a handkerchief, from her apron pocket. "Miss Ava," she said, her expression tense. "The day after the fire, when they weren't paying attention, I went to clean up the debris in the suite. I found this in the ashes, near the window frame." She unwrapped the handkerchief. Inside was a small, half-burnt piece of what looked like metal wire, with a tiny bit of melted plastic attached to one end. It didn't look like part of a lamp or any normal appliance. I took it and examined it closely. I didn't recognize it. "What is it?" Mrs. Peterson lowered her voice even more. "My son is an electrician. I've heard him talk about things like this. It looks like a small part from a timer or some kind of remote control device. It's not something that should be in a new house." My mind buzzed. A timer? A remote device? If the fire was arson, the culprit would need something to start or control it. This burnt fragment could be the key piece of evidence. My hands trembled with excitement. "Mrs. Peterson, this is incredibly important. Did anyone else see you find it?" No. She shook her head quickly. "I hid it well. No one knows." "Miss Ava, will this help you?" I clutched the small remnant as if it were a lifeline. "It will help more than you can imagine. This is hard proof that the fire was no accident." Mrs. Peterson looked relieved, but then her face clouded with worry. "You must hide it well. Don't let them find it. The Davenports are very powerful." I nodded. I found a small Ziploc bag and carefully placed the crucial evidence inside, tucking it into a hidden compartment in my suitcase. With this, the insurance policy, and whatever Chloe was digging up, I could almost see a path to victory. Mrs. Peterson was my guardian angel. She had helped me time and time again. I took her hands gratefully. "Mrs. Peterson, thank you. I mean it. Without you, I would be dead." She patted my hand. "You're a good person, Miss Ava. Good people deserve to be safe. Just be careful. Let me know if you need anything." After she left, I looked at the hidden evidence, a surge of strength flowing through me. "Julian Davenport and Victoria Davenport, your masks are about to come off." Hiding two pieces of life or death evidence, Every day I spent in the Davenport mansion felt like walking on a tightrope. On one hand, I had to play the part of a traumatized young wife, slowly becoming more dependent on her husband. On the other, I had to be constantly vigilant, secretly observing and waiting, buying more time for Chloe's investigation. Seeing me return to normal, Julian and his mother seemed to lower their guard. Julian even started occasionally complaining to me about his business, mentioning that cash flow was tight but would be resolved soon, and telling me not to worry. I would smile coldly to myself. Of course I wasn't worried. Your solution is to kill me for the insurance money, isn't it? A couple of days later, just as I was about to contact Chloe again, she called me. That afternoon, both Julian and Victoria were out. I hid in the guest room with the door locked before answering. Chloe's voice was a mix of excitement and fury. Ava, I got it. My God, the Davenports are rotten to the core. Quick, tell me what you found, I whispered urgently. Chloe spoke rapidly. First, about Lily, his first wife. I consulted a friend, and we managed to get a look at the hospital's internal records and some unpublished lab reports from that time. The official record says acute poisoning, multiple organ failure, but the toxicology report was vague, and the resuscitation process seemed odd, almost delayed. Most importantly, I found out that one of the nurses on duty that night quit shortly after. It took a lot of digging, but I found her. I held my breath. What did she say? I pretended to be a journalist doing a story on wealthy families to get her to talk, Chloe said. She was reluctant at first, but when I hinted at financial compensation, she opened up. She said that night, she overheard Julian and his mother arguing outside the ICU. They were saying things like, was the dosage wrong? Why isn't she gone yet? She was so scared she didn't say anything. After Lily died, she couldn't live with the guilt and fear, so she quit. A chill ran down my spine. Dosage? Isn't she gone yet? That was practically a confession, Chloe continued. And about Julian's company Ava, their family business is a house of cards. They owe tens of millions to banks and loan sharks. Several of their projects have failed. Creditors are hounding them daily. He married you for one reason, your family's money. He wanted to use your trust fund or the insurance money to fill the hole. Even though I had suspected it, hearing Chloe confirm the numbers and details was still shocking. A multi-million-dollar debt. No wonder they were willing to take such a desperate risk. Ava, is this enough evidence? Chloe asked angrily. If it is, we should go to the police now. It's too dangerous for you to stay there. I forced myself to remain calm. Chloe, you did an amazing job. This information is critical, but it's still not quite enough to go to the police. We need more direct evidence, like a recording of them admitting it. Otherwise, they could easily deny everything, and that nurse might be too scared to testify. Then what do we do? You can't stay there, Chloe insisted. Don't worry, I said. I already have some physical evidence. Now I just need an opportunity to get them to talk. Keep an eye on that nurse. Try to keep her on our side. We might need her. Okay, Ava, just be careful. My phone is on 24/7, Chloe promised. After hanging up, I leaned against the wall, processing everything. The first wife's death was almost certainly murder. The company's massive debt was the motive. My insurance policy was part of the plan. The remnant from the fire was the physical evidence. All I needed was one final push to get them to admit it themselves. I needed an opportunity, a moment when they would let their guard down, become arrogant, and slip up. I looked at my own calm reflection in the mirror and clenched my fists. The opportunity would come, and I would be ready. With the crucial information from Chloe, I felt more confident, but also more anxious. The chain of evidence was nearly complete. All I needed was the final link, their own confession. I had to create an opportunity, a situation where they would believe their scheme was successful, feel triumphant, and in their arrogance, let something slip. How to create such an opportunity? I had to appeal to their greed. What did Julian want most? Money, my trust fund, or my insurance payout? What did his mother, Victoria, want most? For her son's company to be saved, so she could continue her luxurious lifestyle. Fine. I would offer them exactly what they wanted. 2 days later, During dinner, I noticed Julian was looking stressed and barely touching his food. The creditors were probably calling again. I put down my fork and looked at him with a worried expression. Julian, you seem so unhappy lately. Is something wrong with the business? Julian sighed, forcing a smile. It's nothing, Ava. Just a small problem. I can handle it. Victoria chimed in. That's right. These are men's affairs. We women don't need to worry. I looked down, fidgeting with my napkin, pretending to hesitate. Actually, I know. The company needs a lot of money, doesn't it? Julian froze, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. Who told you that? I quickly shook my head, putting on my most innocent expression. No one. I just guessed. You haven't been sleeping well, and you frown every time the phone rings. We're married now. We should share our burdens. I looked at him, my eyes full of sincerity. The trust fund my parents gave me, plus my own savings and investments. It's about $7 or $8 million. I know it might not be enough, but maybe it could help for now. I can't bear to see you so stressed. As I spoke, I watched them closely. Sure enough, both Julian's and Victoria's eyes lit up with a greedy glint, the look of a predator seeing its prey walk straight into a trap. Julian immediately grabbed my hand. Ava, are you serious? You would use your trust fund to help me? I nodded shyly. You're my husband. Who else would I help? Victoria was beaming, leaning over to hug me. Oh, my dearest daughter-in-law, I knew you were a treasure. Julian, do you see how sensible and supportive Ava is? So much better than some others. Julian nodded eagerly, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and triumphant joy. Ava, I don't know what to say. That's your money. I continued my act. It's fine. We just need to get through this. Once the company is back on its feet, you can buy me even better things. I sneered internally. Once you get the money, the next step is to get rid of me for good, right? As expected, Victoria couldn't wait. Yes, it's settled then. Tomorrow, Julian will take you to get the paperwork done. The sooner the money is transferred, the sooner we can solve this problem. Julian nodded. Yes, Ava, I'll take you to the bank tomorrow. Seeing their greedy, impatient faces, I felt sick, but I had to maintain my happy expression. The fish had taken the bait. They thought they had me completely under their control. Once they had the money, they would feel invincible. They would surely relax their guard, maybe even celebrate prematurely. And that would be my moment. The moment to get the final, fatal piece of evidence. The climax of this twisted play was fast approaching. After dinner, Julian and Victoria were overwhelmingly affectionate, treating me like a savior. I endured their nauseating charade and then retreated to my room early, feigning exhaustion. The moment the door was locked, I sagged against it, letting out a long breath. Every second spent with those two was an ordeal. I went to my bed and retrieved my phone and a small, backup digital voice recorder from a hidden spot. I had bought it years ago for recording meetings, never imagining I would use it for something like this. I checked the battery and memory, ensuring it was ready. It would likely be needed tomorrow. Then, I sat on the bed and mentally reviewed all the clues and evidence, piecing them together like a puzzle until the entire evil plot was laid bare. Motive: Julian's company was on the verge of bankruptcy, desperate for a massive cash injection. Target: me, an only child with a substantial trust fund, and the secret, multi-million-dollar life insurance policy he had taken out on me. Precedent: his first wife, Lily, died under suspicious circumstances, likely murdered, at a time when the company was also in trouble. A similar pattern: wife dies accidentally, husband benefits. Action: the accidental fire on our wedding night. Mrs. Peterson's warning saved me. The timer, remote device fragment she found was direct proof of arson. Reaction: their panicked but calculating behavior after the fire, their probing questions, and their extreme interest in the police's findings. The bait: their undisguised joy and impatience when I offered my trust fund, completely exposing their financial motives. All the pieces fit perfectly. A complete, vicious conspiracy was clear. Julian pursued me for my money, married me quickly, and then planned to kill me in an accident to claim my trust fund and the insurance payout. He had likely done it before. Rage burned in my chest like a volcano. This wasn't a domestic dispute. This was cold-blooded, premeditated murder for profit. They saw me as a lamb to the slaughter. But soon, the anger was replaced by an icy resolve. Thankfully, I had found out. Thankfully, Mrs. Peterson had saved me. Thankfully, I wasn't a complete fool. The roles of hunter and prey were about to be reversed. I gripped the voice recorder. Tomorrow, if they revealed even the slightest hint of their plot, I would capture it. It would be the final nail in their coffin. Julian and Victoria, your doomsday is coming. The next morning, just as I predicted, Julian was eager to take me to the bank to handle the transfer. Before we left, I quietly turned on the small voice recorder and tucked it into the inner pocket of my jacket, making sure the microphone wasn't obstructed. My heart was pounding, a mix of nerves and excitement. Julian was in an exceptionally good mood. He was overly attentive the whole way, filling the silence with empty promises about how he would grow the company once the funds were secured, and how we would travel the world together. I smiled and nodded along, thinking to myself, the only world tour you'll be taking is around a prison yard. At the bank, the process for a large transfer was complicated and required some waiting. Julian grew restless, constantly checking his watch. I asked casually, "Is the situation at the company that urgent, Julian? You seem to be in a hurry." He sighed, lowering his voice. "It is. A couple of creditors are getting aggressive. If we don't pay them soon, there could be serious trouble." He paused, perhaps realizing he was damaging his successful image, and quickly added, "But don't you worry. As soon as this money goes through, everything will be sorted out." His words trailed off, but his eyes held a flash of relief and something colder, as if a great weight was being lifted. I nodded and didn't press further, mentally noting that he had admitted to the urgent debt. Once the transfer was complete, my trust fund money was in his company's account. Julian stared at the confirmation message on his phone, his face breaking into a look of pure, unadulterated ecstasy, a triumphant and almost savage relief. He let out a long breath and wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "This is fantastic, Ava. You're my good luck charm. Come on, I'm taking you out for a celebratory lunch." Celebrating what? I thought. Getting my money? Or that your plan is one step closer to completion? During lunch, he was in high spirits and even ordered a bottle of expensive red wine. After a few glasses, he became more talkative. He looked at me, his expression complex, and said wistfully, "You know, Ava, it's funny how life works out. If only Lily had been as supportive as you. Well, no use talking about the past." His sudden mention of his first wife made my ears perk up. I gently prodded him. "Lily? What was she like? Did she also help you through a tough time?" Perhaps it was the wine, or perhaps he felt invincible now that the money was secured. He scoffed and waved his hand dismissively. "Her? She didn't have your resources. Her family was already failing back then. Couldn't help at all. Besides, her luck just ran out." His words were vague, but combined with what Chloe had found, the meaning was crystal clear. Because Lily's family had no more money to offer, her luck ran out, and she died. I suppressed my rage and put on a naive expression. "Oh, that's a shame. But things are better now, Julian. We're going to have a great future together, right? No more accidents?" I intentionally stressed the word accidents. Julian laughed, a booming, confident sound. He reached out and stroked my cheek, his eyes gleaming with a winner's arrogance. "Don't you worry, baby. There won't be any more accidents. All the accidents are behind us now. From here on out, it's only good times." When he said, "All the accidents are behind us now," his tone so relieved, so confident that everything was under control, was a virtual confession. He was referring to the failed accident on our wedding night. I looked down at my plate, hiding the cold fury in my eyes. In my jacket pocket, the recorder was faithfully capturing every word. It was enough. This was more than enough. While he hadn't explicitly said, "I set that fire to kill you," the context of the conversation, combined with all the other evidence, was enough to expose his motive, his history, and his clear knowledge of the accidents. After lunch, Julian, still in high spirits, suggested we go to a movie. I feigned a headache and said I wanted to rest. He didn't insist and drove me home. The moment I was back in the guest room, I locked the door, pulled out the recorder, and played back the audio. Julian's voice filled the small room. A couple of creditors are getting aggressive. It was her luck that ran out. All the accidents are behind us now. Listening to the words he'd spoken in his moment of triumph, I shook, with a mixture of rage and elation. This was the smoking gun. This was the final piece of the puzzle. Julian and Victoria Davenport, your bell is about to toll. With the recording secured, I knew it was time to close the net. I couldn't wait any longer. Every extra day was another day of risk. Now that Julian had my money and his financial pressure was temporarily relieved, who knew what he would do next? He might become desperate after his first plan failed and try something else. I had to strike first. But I didn't call 911 immediately. I needed a foolproof plan to ensure they were caught red-handed, with no chance to escape or talk their way out of it. Ideally, I would expose them in a public setting, in front of witnesses. This would prevent them from retaliating or creating a false narrative, and it would have the maximum impact. The perfect opportunity presented itself that evening. At dinner, my mother-in-law, Victoria, announced cheerfully, "My birthday is in a few days. It's not a big one, but with all the good news lately, I was thinking we should have a small party here at the house, just some close friends and family to celebrate and clear out the bad luck from before." Julian immediately agreed. "That's a great idea, Mom. It's definitely time to celebrate. I'll have someone start the preparations." My heart skipped a beat. A birthday party, close friends and family. It was a godsend. I immediately put on a happy face. "That's wonderful, Victoria. I'll be sure to give you a special toast to wish you a happy birthday." Victoria beamed, completely taken in. "Oh, wonderful. You see, my daughter-in-law is the sweetest." With the time and place set, my mind began racing. A party, with a crowd of people, would be the perfect stage. It was when they would be at their most relaxed and off guard. The next day, I told them I was meeting a friend for a spa day and left the house. As soon as I was out of sight, I found a quiet cafe and made a call. I didn't dial 911. I called an old family friend of my father's, a man I had known since I was a child as Uncle Brody. He was now the chief of police for the city. This situation was too big and too dangerous. I needed someone I could absolutely trust, someone with the authority to see this through. When he answered, I kept my voice low and explained everything. My ordeal, the evidence I had collected, the policy photos, the fire debris, the audio recording, and my plan for the party. On the other end of the line, Chief Brody listened in stunned silence, which quickly turned to outrage. "Unbelievable. This is heinous. Ava, don't you worry. I will personally handle this. This is an extremely serious matter. You just confirm the time and place, and let me know beforehand. I'll have my best plainclothes officers there, mixed in with the guests. They'll wait for your signal and ensure your safety. We'll get them, with all the evidence." With his assurance, a massive weight lifted from my shoulders. After hanging up, I contacted Chloe and told her the final plan, asking her to be on standby in case we needed any remote technical support, like instantly verifying a piece of information. With everything arranged, I actually went to a spa to calm my frayed nerves before returning to the Davenport mansion. When I got back, Julian and Victoria were excitedly discussing the party guest list and menu. Their faces were radiant with genuine joy, mostly because the money was in and their crisis was averted. I watched them with a placid smile, but inside, I was thinking, enjoy it while you can. Celebrate all you want, because this will be the last party you ever attend as free people. For your birthday, Victoria, I'm going to give you a gift you'll never forget. Victoria's birthday finally arrived. The Davenport mansion was a hive of activity from early morning. Staff cleaned and decorated, the kitchen buzzed with preparations, and the garden was adorned with fresh flowers and cocktail tables. It was a scene of festive celebration. Julian and Victoria were dressed in their finest, greeting guests at the door with broad smiles. Most of the attendees were their relatives and business associates, all looking affluent and influential. I had also dressed carefully, choosing a dress that was elegant and gentle, befitting my role. With perfect makeup and a polite smile, I stood by Julian's side, playing the part of the happy, adoring wife. Every guest complimented me, telling Julian how lucky he was, and Victoria what a wonderful daughter-in-law she had. They soaked it up, their egos inflating with every word. But I could see that beneath Julian's proud exterior, his eyes sometimes held a flash of cold calculation when he looked at me. It was a look that seemed to say, "Enjoy it. This is the last time you'll shine." I would meet his gaze with one of my own, full of admiration and trust while my mind seethed. Keep smiling. You won't be smiling for long. The party grew more lively. People drank, chatted, and flattered each other. The garden was filled with laughter and cheerful music. Victoria was surrounded by her friends, basking in their birthday wishes. Julian moved through the crowd, a picture of success, a man who had it all. I subtly scanned the area and spotted them the officers Chief Brody had sent. They were dressed as guests, scattered among the crowd, chatting casually but with sharp eyes that never stopped watching me and their surroundings. I felt a surge of confidence. The time had come. It was time to present my gift. I took a deep breath, my smile still in place, and walked to a slightly open area near the center of the garden, by a small fountain where my voice would carry. I clapped my hands lightly to get everyone's attention. "Excuse me, everyone, our esteemed elders, dear friends. Could I have your attention for just a moment?" The cheerful chatter gradually subsided as all eyes turned to me, curious about what I was about to do. Julian and Victoria looked at me, still smiling, assuming I was about to give a heartfelt birthday speech. Julian even said to the guests, "It seems my lovely wife has a special birthday wish for my mother." My own smile slowly faded, replaced by an expression of cold calm. I began to speak, my voice clear and steady, reaching every corner of the garden. Today is indeed a special day for my mother-in-law, and so I wanted to give her a very special birthday gift, a gift of the truth. Everyone was stunned, murmuring to each other, confused. The smiles on Julian and Victoria's faces froze, replaced by a flicker of confusion and unease. Victoria forced a laugh. "Ava, what are you talking about? What truth?" I ignored her, my gaze sweeping across the stunned faces of the guests. "I want to tell you all a story about the accidental fire on my wedding night, a story about the true cause of death of Mr. Julian Davenport's first wife, Lily, and a story about the tens of millions of dollars of debt plaguing the Davenport Company and the $5 million life insurance policy on me, with Julian as the sole beneficiary." With every sentence, the color drained from Julian's and Victoria's faces. Gasps of shock rippled through the crowd. "What nonsense are you spouting?" Julian finally snapped, his face turning ashen as he lunged toward me to shut me up. But it was too late. The show had just begun. Julian tried to rush me, but two guests standing nearby casually blocked his path, preventing him from reaching me. I looked at him without a trace of fear and continued, speaking quickly to make sure everyone heard. "You think this is nonsense? You'll see. On my wedding night, it was our housekeeper, Mrs. Peterson, who saved my life. She told me to run just before the fire started, and from the ashes, she found this." I held up my phone, displaying a close-up photo of the burnt device remnant for all to see. "This is part of a timer, or a remote detonator. This proves the fire was arson." The crowd erupted in an uproar, everyone staring in horror at Julian and Victoria. "You're lying! It was an accident! The police said so!" Victoria shrieked. "An accident?" I countered coldly. "Then what about this insurance policy?" I switched the screen to the photo of the policy, purchased the day before our wedding, a $5 million payout to Julian. What a coincidence. Before they could recover, I played the most crucial part of the audio recording. Julian's confident voice filled the stunned silence. "A couple of creditors are getting aggressive. It was her luck that ran out. All the accidents are behind us now." The recording ended, and a dead silence fell over the party. While it wasn't a direct confession to murder, the tone, the words, and the context made the meaning unmistakable to anyone with a brain. Julian's face was a mask of despair. He pointed a shaking finger at me. "It's fake. It's all fake. You fabricated it. You're framing me." I stared him down. "Am I framing you? Is your company's multi-million-dollar debt a fabrication? Is the fact that your first wife, Lily, died of acute poisoning a fabrication?" Is your desperate need for my trust fund and insurance money a fabrication? Did you think a naive woman like me deserved to be cheated and murdered for your gain? That once a woman like Lily was no longer useful, she deserved to be poisoned and discarded? Each question was a hammer blow, leaving them speechless. The guests finally understood the full, horrifying picture. They looked at the mother and son with a mixture of shock, disgust, and fear. The whispers grew louder. My God, how horrible. So that's why Lily died so suddenly. He's a monster, a serial predator. Julian and Victoria were completely cornered, their faces pale and their bodies trembling. They tried to deny it, but their words were incoherent babble. Victoria collapsed onto the ground, wailing, "It's not true. We're being framed." At that moment, the plainclothes officers, led by Chief Brody's top detective, revealed their badges. They moved in swiftly, apprehending a struggling Julian and a hysterical Victoria. The lead detective announced in a loud, firm voice, "Julian Davenport, Victoria Davenport, you are under arrest for suspicion of attempted murder, insurance fraud, and in connection with the death of Lily Davenport. You have the right to remain silent." As the handcuffs clicked shut on his wrists, Julian finally broke. He glared at me, his face contorted with rage, and screamed, "Ava, you venomous bitch! You'll pay for this." I looked back at him, my voice as cold as ice. "The only ones who will pay are you and your mother. The law will see to that." Watching them being led away by the police, the rigid posture I had held for so long finally began to relax. The garden was in chaos, the guests murmuring in shock and looking at me with a mixture of pity and awe. I knew then that I had won. The nightmare was finally over. With Julian and Victoria arrested, the birthday party devolved into a crime scene. The guests, in a state of shock, quickly made their excuses and left. The once festive mansion was now eerily quiet, littered with the remnants of a party that had ended in disgrace. I stood in the middle of the garden, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. The satisfaction of revenge, the relief of safety, and the bone-deep exhaustion that follows a long and terrible ordeal. Mrs. Peterson cautiously approached, draping a shawl over my shoulders. Her eyes were red. "Miss Ava, are you all right?" That was terrifying. I took her hand, my own voice choking up. "I'm fine, Mrs. Peterson, thanks to you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be standing here today." I never could have exposed them. Soon after, my parents and Chloe arrived, rushing in with panicked expressions. My mother ran to me, hugging me tightly and bursting into tears. "Oh, my Ava, you poor thing. You went through so much. Why didn't you tell us?" My father's face was grim with a mixture of fear and fury. Unforgivable. Those animals. How dare they try to harm my daughter? I'll see them rot in hell. Chloe hugged my arm, half crying, half laughing. "Ava, you were incredible. So brave. I was so worried." The support of my family was a warm, comforting blanket, making me feel truly safe for the first time in weeks. The following days were filled with police interviews and legal proceedings. The case moved forward quickly, given the overwhelming evidence. The insurance policy, the forensic report on the fire debris, Chloe's financial investigation into the Davenport company, the suspicious circumstances of Lily's death, and, of course, the damning audio recording. Based on my testimony and the evidence, the police reopened the investigation into Lily's death and soon uncovered more proof of foul play by Julian and Victoria. While awaiting the trial, I focused on the divorce and recovering my trust fund. The transfer records were clear, and with the Davenport company's assets frozen by the police, most of my money was recovered. I officially and completely severed all ties with that cursed family. I didn't attend the trial. I had no desire to ever see their faces again. Chloe later told me they had tried to deny everything in court, but faced with the mountain of evidence, their lies crumbled. In the end, Julian Davenport was found guilty of attempted murder, fraud, and the murder of his first wife, Lily. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Victoria, as his accomplice, also received a life sentence. When I heard the verdict, the last knot of tension in my heart finally dissolved. Justice had been served. They would pay for their greed and cruelty. After everything was settled, the first thing I did was go to see Mrs. Peterson. She had resigned from the Davenport household and was living with her son. I drove to his house, and when I saw her, I didn't say a word. I simply knelt before her and bowed my head to the ground. "Oh, goodness, Miss Ava, no, get up. What are you doing?" she cried, rushing to help me up. I insisted on finishing the bow before I stood, tears streaming down my face. "Mrs. Peterson, you must accept this. Without you, Ava Miller would be nothing but ashes today. You saved my life, and you gave me the courage and the evidence to fight back. You are my savior." Mrs. Peterson was crying too, holding my hands. "Don't say that, Miss Ava. I only did what was right. Seeing you safe and sound is all the reward I need." I wiped my tears and looked at her seriously. "Mrs. Peterson, what are your plans for retirement? If you'll let me, I would like to buy you a small apartment and set up a fund for you to ensure you live comfortably for the rest of your life. It's the least I can do. Please don't refuse." She immediately waved her hands. No, that's far too much. I can't accept that." "You must," I insisted. "This isn't charity. This is a debt of gratitude. If you don't accept it, I'll never have peace of mind." In the end, she tearfully agreed. I quickly found a quiet, comfortable condo for her, handled all the paperwork, and deposited a substantial sum for her retirement. Seeing her settled and secure, I felt a final sense of closure. With that last task done, I felt I had truly left the past behind. I sold every piece of jewelry and every gift the Davenports had ever given me. I donated a portion of the money to a foundation for battered women, hoping to help others who might find themselves in terrible situations. With the rest, I started my own business, a small interior design studio, something I had always been passionate about. Life became busy and fulfilling. Despite the nightmare I had endured, I hadn't lost faith in life. In fact, having survived, I cherished each day even more. I had become more independent, more resilient. My parents, who had worried I would be scarred by the trauma, were relieved to see me thriving. Sometimes, I would find myself staring out the window, remembering that terrifying time. It felt like a bad dream, but when I woke up, the sun was still shining. I was grateful for everyone who had helped me, especially Mrs. Peterson. And I was grateful for the version of myself who, in the end, refused to be a victim and chose to fight back. Life had dealt me a devastating blow, but I had survived, and I had emerged stronger, ready for a new beginning. The road ahead was long, but I knew that as long as I acted with courage and kindness, good things would come.